Alright guys, so I'm recording this video right here. It's just going to be a video to put a few finishing touches on solving two-step equations. One-step equations are the easier version of this. Two-step equations, multi-step equations. So remember, when you're solving an equation, you need to be doing the order of operations, or PEMDAS, right? Order of operations, but you're doing it backwards. So you're going to start with whatever's added or subtracted, then do multiplication, division, exponents, and the last thing that you're going to be trying to move to the other side if you're trying to solve for something is anything that's in that parentheses. Okay? So I'm going to work through, it looks like 5 problems here. So the first problem that I want to work through is something like this. Now this should be very familiar to you guys. It should be simple. But while looking at this, here's one misconception that I kept seeing in class. It was pretty much the idea that 10x plus 6 equals 46, and if I'm solving for x, guys, whatever's on the other side or the further side of the equation from x, I shouldn't ever really need to move it back over to this side. The idea is I want to get the 6 and the 10 over to the other side of the equation so that I can solve for the x. So my 6 and my 10 is what I need to move, not the 46. Okay, so I every once in a while saw that misconception, so I just wanted to start off with that. So now, doing the order of operations in reverse, I want to start, when I'm looking at this side, the side with the x on it, I want to start by getting rid of anything that's being added or subtracted. So that 6 is being added, so I'm going to get rid of it by doing the inverse operation of it. So I'm going to, instead of add 6, I'm going to subtract 6 from each side. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other, and that's in order to maintain equality. If these two things were even, then I need to subtract 6 from each side to make sure that they continue to be even. So 6 will cancel with 6. I have 10x on the left. 46 minus 6 is 40. Okay, so now I've gotten rid of any kind of addition or subtraction. Now I'm on to multiplication and division. So if 10 is being multiplied by x, then I'm going to want to do the opposite operation again. So instead of multiply, I'm going to divide by 10 on both sides. 10 divided by 10 is just 1, so I have 1x left. 40 divided by 10 is 4. And there's my final answer. My x is isolated, x equals 4, and if I wanted to check it, I could take this 4 and plug it back into that original equation. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm not going to write it out though, but think about it. 10 times 4 is 40, plus 6 is 46. So 46 equals 46. It works out. I'd put a check mark, and I would know that that was my answer. Okay, I'm going to do another problem now. Let's do 16 minus 10w equals negative 74. Okay. Again, inverse order of operations. I want to solve for the w, so I want to get rid of this minus 10 and that 16. Now, keep in mind that that minus 10, that negative 10, is being multiplied by the w. So this falls under the category of multiplication. So I'm not going to actually touch that negative 10 until I get over here. And then to get rid of it, remember, I don't add 10. I need to divide it off because right now this 10 is being multiplied by the w. Now that 16, that's a positive 16. I realize, guys, here's another misconception. It looks like it says minus 16, but it's not. This is a positive 16. You got to look out in front. Okay? So that's a positive 16. So to get rid of a positive 16 was adding, I need to subtract 16 from both sides. So these cancel. I have negative 10w equals negative 90. Okay? Now again, here's this part where I said it was negative 10 times w. So to get rid of negative 10 being multiplied by w, I need to divide by negative 10 on each side. So notice, again, there's an order of operations. I start off with what's being added or subtracted, and 2 times in a row now I've ended. The last step I needed to do was something in the multiplication or division. But negative 10 divided by negative 10 is a positive w, and then negative 90 divided by negative 10 is positive 9. And if I wanted to check it, plug it in right here. Okay? So notice, though, if I had a negative 10 times w, I divide it by a negative so that it would be positive. If ever I end up with a negative variable at the end, then I need to divide by negative 1 so that this will be positive, because you're trying to solve for a positive variable. You don't want it to be a negative. All right. Next one. Here's another good one that a lot of people misunderstand. C minus 5 divided by 4 equals 3. So if you're doing the order of operations backward, you should get to addition and subtraction first. So you might think that, oh, okay, I need to get rid of that minus 5. If you have been paying attention and you've been doing order of operations backward, I could totally understand you wanting to get rid of the minus 5 first. But here's the deal. With something like this, you need to realize that C minus 5 is grouped together. So notice the C and the minus 5 are both being divided by 4, or they're both in the numerator of that fraction. So you really need to kind of view that C and that minus 5 as a parentheses. Even though it doesn't have a parentheses, you need to realize it's a grouping. So treat it like a parentheses, okay? So this C and that minus 5, it's the very last thing that needs to be hit. It's the very last thing that needs to be touched, okay? So with that being said, with you understanding that it's a grouping, the first thing that really happens, yes, there is subtraction, but it happens inside that grouping, so that's actually up here. So there's no regular addition or subtraction. The first thing we come to is division, which is that divide by 4. So I need to get rid of divide by 4, and the opposite operation of division is multiplication. So I need to get rid of that by multiplying by 4 on each side. 4 and 4 will cancel. Okay, so I have C minus 5 equals 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, now notice what happens. That C minus 5 that was previously held together because of this division now has nothing dividing it, so it's no longer a group. Okay, so you can get rid of that minus 5 there. All right, so I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So these cancel. C equals 12 plus 5 is 17. And if I wanted to check it, plug it back in that original equation where that C is. All right, I'm going to keep going real quick. Okay, so I put 2 questions to end with fractions in it. Okay, so I figured people would have questions about this, and even if I taught it, you might continue to have questions about it. So when solving a fraction, it's the same thing. What you really need to realize is that this fraction like this, it's like n times 2 divided by 6. So you could see it written like that. You could also have 2 over 6n like that. But in both cases, what you need to realize is that this is just simply, whether it's 2 over 6 times n or 2 times n over 6, it's all the same thing. So when you're multiplying by a fraction, you're actually multiplying by 2, dividing by 6. So first thing I want to do, multiplication and division are over here. I want to get rid of that subtraction first. Okay, so I'm going to add 16 to both sides. These cancel. I have 2n over 6 equals 12. Now, 2 ways I can solve this. One is I realize that this is division by 6, multiplication by 2. So I can start off by multiplying. Here, I'm going to just go ahead and put a star next to this so I remember to come back to it. So I'm going to do it one step at a time. Let's get rid of the division first. It doesn't really matter which one you do first, but let's go ahead and do division first. So times 6 times 6. So these will cancel like that. I'll have 2n equals 12 times 6 is 72. Now I need to get rid of the times 2 by dividing by 2 on each side. So n will equal 36. Now here's the other thing you could do. So that's one way of doing it. So notice I had a times 2 and a divide by 6. I just did them as separate steps. I got rid of the divide by 6. I multiplied by 6 to get rid of that, and then I divided by 2 to get rid of that. You could also, and remember I got n equals 36. I'm going to erase this real quick. What I could have done, so that was a divide by 6. What I could have done is what a lot of you guys know, is just multiply by the reciprocal. So if I have 2 over 6 times n, then what I can do to get rid of that, let me use a different color marker, is multiply both sides by 6 over 2. Okay, so 6 over 2 will cancel with the 2 over 6, so I'll have n equals 12 times 6 over 2 is going to be that 36 again. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. So either way works. You can get rid of 2 divided by 6n by multiplying by 6 as one step and then dividing by 2 as another step, or you can just multiply by the reciprocal all in one step. Either way, both approaches will work fine. Okay, last one. I wanted to put a negative in here. Negative h divided by 3, or I think it was actually written more like this. Negative h divided by 3 minus 4 equals 13. Okay, so I'm going to start off with getting rid of that subtraction. These cancel. I have negative h over 3 equals 17. Now I have divide by 3. So with this negative right here, you can really put it on the denominator, or you can put it in the numerator, whichever one or the other, not both. Okay, I'll go ahead and just, I'll put it in the numerator. So I have negative h divided by 3. So to get rid of that divided by 3, I'm going to multiply by 3 on both sides. So I have negative h equals 51. And now, as I said, if you ever have like a negative variable like this, then ultimately how to solve that and to get it to be positive, you can just divide by negative 1 on both sides. What you do to one side, you have to do to that other side to keep everything even. So negative h divided by negative 1 is positive h. Positive 51 divided by negative 1 is negative 51. And you can check that by plugging it back in there. So my answer is negative 51. Let me just give an example real quick of how it didn't matter if you put that negative on top or bottom. So say instead of putting it up top, we put it on bottom. So now to get rid of divide by negative 3, I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 3. So negative 3 and negative 3 cancel. H equals 17 times negative 3 is negative 51, which, in my opinion, that way is a lot easier. But either way, the point is, when you have, so that's the answer. The point is, when you have a negative on the outside and it doesn't seem like it's on the top or the bottom, you can put it on the top or the bottom, not both, okay? Because think about this. This is a negative h over 3. So if you put it up top, negative h divided by 3, a negative divided by a positive is negative, or a positive divided by negative is a negative. But if you put it on both top and bottom, a negative divided by a negative becomes a positive, and that's a problem, okay? All right, guys, if you have any other questions, this video was solely for misconceptions and just kind of refining out all the bugs that you might have in solving multi-step equations. So if you have any other questions, though, just ask me in class, or again, I'm always available for tutoring almost every Monday and Thursday after school.